Hello, I'm Megan Cassidy. So Inspector Doran, what are some of your duties as a fire inspector?
We perform commercial building inspections. We don't have jurisdiction in residential, so we do commercial building inspections. We have a seat on the Area Plan Commission here in Evansville. We review any blueprints for buildings before they ever get built. I present fire safety presentations, usually PowerPoints and videos and things like that at local businesses, neighborhood associations, things like that. Gosh, we do all kinds of stuff in my division.
So how many of there are you?
There are 8 of us, and we have the city's fire marshal who's in charge of it.
So what are some of the points in the codes that you're actually looking for whenever you go into businesses and whatnot? 3
of the biggest things are means of egress, sprinkler system, and alarm system. Those are 3 of the big things that we look at. That will get me back out to your building a lot of times if we have trouble with those.
So when you go out in the community and do presentations and sorts like that, what do you go over? What do you cover?
Most of the time I bring a screen and do a PowerPoint presentation with a projector, and I try to focus on target hazards, things that get people hurt or worse. That's a lot of what I do. I try to research, depending on who the customer is, I'll research what their needs might be, what their specifics of their building or their hazards are, and then I'll go and put together something and present it to them.
Cool. So everything's kind of personalized to their needs and stuff. So as a fire inspector, what's a typical day like?
I'll go out into my territory and do some inspections. A lot of times I'll go somewhere else and do a fire safety presentation. We have a broad spectrum of duties in the prevention division. I might get a complaint or something like that. I may get someone who just wants my point of view on a particular code issue.
So how often do you actually go into certain buildings and whatnot?
Our target hazards are completed every year. Everybody has in their jurisdiction target hazards. Buildings are designated by their occupancy group, educational, business, factories, mercantile, and a lot of the buildings that end up on our target hazard list are assembly occupancies, nightclubs, taverns, bars, places, factories that have a lot of hazardous materials, high occupant load buildings. What else? Anybody that has a particular process that we might think is pretty dangerous, that needs some more scrutiny, we'll make sure we get in there. But we try to get those target hazards every year.
So what sort of fire hazards do you look for during the day?
I really try to keep my eye open. Every inch of the building is covered by fire and building code, and there's so many hazards out there people really don't realize. I'll look at hazardous material storage, quantity limits, separation between their storage of hazardous materials. You don't want to put 2 incompatible materials together. Flame spread ratings for paint on the walls or decorative materials, means of egress, building construction, fire-rated constructions. There's a lot. It's a big book. It's like that thick.
Big process. So what are some of the most common mistakes that you see during the day?
Means of egress, I think, in my 8 years as a building code official, might be the most important if I was going to single one thing out. It's the way out of the building. The building keeps rain off the top of you at that time, but it can also trap you in an emergency. So, that's part of my job, is to make sure if a door needs to be open that it's not locked and people can get out of a building safely if they have to.
So do you go into residential homes?
We don't have jurisdiction in residences. Some of the things that I would look for if I was doing an inspection in a residence: make sure you have smoke detection. After about 10 years, take the battery out of the good battery out of your smoke detector and throw the whole detector away and get you a new detector. Cooking and warming devices are big culprits for residential fires. I'd make sure I had a second way out if I've got a second-story bedroom. If you have a fire on the first floor, your stairwell becomes a chimney, and modern fire smoke can be, it's a toxic cocktail of carcinogenic compounds. Years ago, people had more organic things in their homes, wood, rubber, leather. Now you've got ABS plastic, all sorts of things are going to generate really toxic products of combustion. And trust me, you can become overcome quickly by that. So have a second way out if you've got a second floor bedroom. Extension cords are a typical culprit for fires. Warming devices. Cooking is the #1 cause of fires in a residence.
So, on the topic of fire extinguishers, how many should someone have in their home, or should they keep them? What's your opinion on that?
I like fire extinguishers in the home. General purpose 2A 10BC extinguisher, something that is a broad spectrum extinguisher, is good for your home. I'd keep one up and down just in case you won't have to run back downstairs. I keep a few of them in my house. I probably go way above and beyond on fire extinguishers, but yeah. Extinguishers are great, but at the same time, if you think it's going to be dangerous to fight a fire, please get out and let us handle it. Close the door on it. If you can't get a fire put out, just shut the door on it. I've worked in a lot of buildings where smoke migrates to other areas of the building, and that's how a fire gets from point. That smoke cloud will light. It will ignite, and that's how you get fire spreading. Shut the door on it if you can't get something put out.
Yeah. If a fire were to occur in a home, do you think everyone should have like an evacuation plan or a game plan?
Absolutely. EDITH exit drills in the home. I turn the test buttons on my detectors. My kids hate it, but I make them, they know how to get out of the windows if they have to. We've got several ways out of my upstairs. Tell your kids not to seek shelter beneath beds or in closets because they will. Sometimes I've got some friends who have horror stories about kids that go and try to hide from a fire. Teach them to get out of the house, go to a meeting place, and stay there. Let's say little Johnny decides to go to the meeting place and not everybody's out there, and he thinks, well, I'm going to call 911 and I'm going to go next door and use their phone. Well, when Johnny's mom gets out there, she doesn't know where Johnny is, and she ends up going back in looking for him. Make sure everybody goes to the meeting place and stays there until you get an accountability report.
Mm-hmm. Prior to becoming a prevention officer, what did you do?
I was on a regular fire truck for 8 years. Mm-hmm. And when you see somebody get hurt, or worse, when the shock's over with, you start thinking about what could have been done to prevent this. I didn't see everything in my 8 years, but I saw enough. So the test came up for the prevention division. I took a prevention test and I took the job.
Overall, what are some of the most memorable things that you've experienced as a firefighter?
I've seen a lot of stuff. Some of it, I don't want to say you try to forget, but you try to learn from tragedy. We live in a dangerous world. Years ago, if I just lived in a teepee, the biggest thing I'd have to worry about is a teepee falling on me. Now we live in a big complex world that has a lot of hazards in it. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a lot people should know. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, which I tell the regular firefighters if I'm a prevention officer that I'm worth 16 of them. They think it's very funny. Well, I'm only halfway joking about that though. I really think prevention is, if the lights and sirens turn on that truck, it's usually too late. Somebody's already got hurt.
Thank you for keeping our community safe and sharing your insight with us today. Reporting from Evansville Fire Department for Bosse's EVSC Community Link, I'm Megan Cassidy.